the government has announced that planning regulations for onshore wind farms will be relaxed. So the current rules mean that one objection, just one, can prevent them from being built. But after pressure from Conservative MPs, believe it or not, the government will give more options for communities who want development in their area. Well, that's good news for some who want the use of cheap renewable energy to bring down energy bills, but for others it spells bad news. They believe that wind turbines blight natural habitats and can lead to higher electricity costs. It doesn't really matter which way you dress this up. The fact is that it has now become more likely that you can end up with a wind farm very near where you live. You know, if you just bought a house, for example, and you've got a lovely view, someone might slap a wind farm on it, or you might just have one right at the back of your house. Maybe you think that's a good thing. I don't know. But should the government have lifted the ban? It is also, for what it's worth, a Rishi Sunak U-turn. And I can't help but wonder whether or not he can get away with this without being hit in the polls, because I don't really think the Lib Dems are going to come out against wind farms, are they? Labour isn't going to come out against wind farms, so who are you going to vote for, really? Joining me now is Andrew Montford, the director of Net Zero Watch and the leader of the Climate Party as well. Ed Gemmell, both of you, thank you very, very much. Great stuff. Ed, are wind farms, frankly, just a blight on the landscape and killers of birds?
Gosh, what a way to introduce it, Patrick. No, of course they're not. I mean, they are a fantastic opportunity for us to get cheaper electricity going. They're a fantastic opportunity for communities potentially to get cheaper electricity in their local area. I mean, Alok Sharma's proposal, which is what the government was looking at, was suggesting that those local communities could actually benefit from it. And look, in a cost of living crisis like we're in at the moment, what is not to like about getting money off your electricity
the cost
bill
of
in the
them.
local area?
All right, well, it costs about 200 grand to put one of them up, doesn't it? I think that's about the price. Andrew, I mean, do wind farms work, more importantly? Do they work?
Well, I mean, Patrick, both you and Ed have talked about wind energy being cheaper. I have to tell you, it simply isn't true. I do this day in, day out. I look at the costs of wind farms, and I have to tell you that onshore wind farms are probably 20% more expensive than gas turbines at the moment. That's based on current prices of gas and the latest onshore wind farms. Offshore wind turbines are probably twice the price. They are going to put your bills up. Every time you put a new wind farm on the grid, bills go up. It drives up wholesale prices. You have to pay subsidies. You have to pay extra balancing costs. It goes on forever. This is definitely going to put your bills up. So that is bad news. You're right. They are a blight on the landscape too. They're horrible to look at. There are problems with noise. There are problems with flicker. There's problems with infrasound. And yes, they kill birds. I mean, they probably don't kill as many birds as cats do, but they certainly kill, if you like, the more glamorous species, you know, the raptors and the upland birds. So yeah, there's very little to like about wind farms. But at the end of the day, we can't go on putting our energy bills up. We've been through one energy crisis. That's enough.
All right, Ed, there's a lot to come back to there. The leader of the Climate Party, take it away.
I mean, honestly, you come out with a whole load of total rubbish. I mean, I find it absolutely bizarre, to be honest with you. You look at the price of a megawatt hour for gas and for renewables, and actually its renewables are cheaper today. And based on the level of generation as well for renewables, we've actually had points where the cost of renewables has gone down to negative figures. So actually, if we'd been then pegging our electricity price on the amount of renewables we got at certain times, we'd be getting them down at extraordinarily cheap prices. The reason our prices stay up high, as you know, is that we peg it at the price of the most expensive kilowatt hour of electricity that's coming in, and that's generally been gas recently, and that pushes the prices up. But let's also, look at this in an absolutely different way. I mean, we are moving forward at the moment in an economy, and we have an opportunity to get Britain at the front of the new clean industrial revolution, start making money for British people, get industry into this country, drive down the cost of living crisis, and start to see revenue coming in because we have things to sell. Let's spur the new industrial revolution.
Ed, all right, Ed, fine. How many jobs are wind farms going to create?
Well, at the moment, for every kilowatt that we're producing from renewables, we reduce 2.5 times the number of jobs that we do from fossil fuels. It's ridiculous. Everything we do in the renewables industry is not only driving down prices, it's providing more employment for people, and it's moving us through to an opportunity in the future.
OK, well, I'll tell you what, Andrew, come back to that then, because, job creation is something I can get behind.
Yeah. Okay. There's two things. There's two things to say there. One, if Ed thinks that wind farms are cheap and they're creating lots of jobs, well, those two things contradict each other. Jobs cost money. You can't have technologies that create lots of jobs that are simultaneously cheap. Gas is cheaper than wind, if you like, because it takes so few people to run a gas turbine. So that's complete nonsense. But he keeps saying this thing that wind is cheaper than gas. If that's true, we should be able to agree, Ed and I, that we can do away with subsidies for wind power tomorrow. Do we agree on that, Ed?
That's interesting.
I think we can do away with subsidies for fossil fuels first, can't we? On the basis
No.
that they're subsidised
You
at a high
told me
level.
that it was cheaper. It was cheaper than wind was cheaper than gas.
I'm
So
completely
we
into
can
the
do
free
away with
market.
the
All right,
FEC
one at a time.
tomorrow.
Ad, should we do away with subsidies for wind farms?
I'm completely into the free market. Let's do away with all of those subsidies, including the fossil fuel subsidies. Let's make it a completely level playing ground, and let's get on in investing in our clean industrial revolution in the future.
All right, Andrew, you're clearly drilling down, or trying to anyway, into the finances of this kind of stuff then. I mean, you said there that it will be more expensive and make our bills go up. I mean, can you prove that, Andrew? What is it costing us to have a wind farm? What is it going to cost us relative to what we're paying right now?
So if you go back to about 2002, when we first started on the renewables drive, retail electricity prices were about half of what they were in say 2020, a year or so before the energy crisis. That was the effect of renewables. If you want to go back to those sort of prices again, then you have to get rid of the renewables. This is the problem. Renewables will always make your electricity grid more expensive. This is seen across the world.
Right, OK. Well, so you have a radically different view on that, Ed, but this is a vital issue as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this is the issue, right? Because if this is going to cost us a load more money and it's going to blight a landscape, then why are we doing it?
Well, look, I mean, just before we came on today, I was checking the cost per megawatt hour, and renewables are cheaper than gas today. I mean, I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
I'm quite staggered that both of you can have such radically different views on what is presumably Googleable. So, but on this, all right.
1 minute ago, Patrick, can I just have one other thing in as well about?
Please.
This is also about democracy. You look, I'm a local councillor in Buckinghamshire. We deal with planning decisions all the time. And previously, wind has been able to be blocked by one member of the community. Could you imagine how the hands would be thrown up by the house builder?
Whereas normally it takes a room full of Liberal Democrats to do that, doesn't it, with a housing application? That's it. And now, but we streamlined it with wind, and we meant that it could just take Doreen from number 42. You didn't have to boot out the Tories and vote in Ed Davey. Look, how many houses, Ed, are we going to be providing electricity for? With wind. I mean, is it actually effective? This is the other key thing. Is it effective?
I mean, I think it can be hugely effective. I mean, I think the government's target is to get us up to 40, megawatt hours or whatever it is, which is about.
But what's that? In normal people speak. Ed, come on, look, normal people don't know what kilowatt hour is. Okay. What does it mean?
At that kind of level, electricity, that would actually power every single home in the UK, but it wouldn't power our industry. So that's what the government's target is to get it up to the point about 2/3 of our sort of maximum electricity demand. And that actually is about the demand for the whole of the domestic market. So, I mean, that's what can be done. And to be honest, we're more than half the way there at the moment. We're going to be expanding our offshore as well. We've also got solar, and there's plenty of very bright people who talk about why on earth don't we put solar on every single rooftop in the country that's facing in the right direction. Of course we should. One of the issues I think that Andrew should be bringing up, if he's against this, is what do we do with all that excess capacity? Well, I mean, when we've got excess capacity coming from renewables, both wind and solar, and it'd be great when we get to it, which would be wonderful. But then we need to invest in those technologies that are actually going to help us store it and then use it again when we need it. And that's not just batteries and hydrogen, which we should be doing anyway, but it's also investments in technologies such as tide, such as wave. Things
you see, this is the thing, though, isn't it? And this is the thing that I think a lot of people feel, which is that it's all very well and good having these things in isolation. We're going to slap a load of wind farms over here, but then are we doing everything else that we would need to do again? And the answer to that is usually no. And then you end up in a situation like we're in, dare I say, at the minute. Andrew, I see you're itching to get involved. Go on.
Yeah, well, the problem is Ed is getting a little bit confused. He doesn't understand the difference between cost and price. Okay, so he's talked about the price. He's talked about the cost of wind power falling below zero. Okay, but that's the price, not the cost. So it still costs you money to make that electricity, even if you're having to sell it for zero. So when you get a surplus and the price falls to zero, it still costs you lots of money to make it. So you're wasting electricity. Now, you can then spend a load more money turning it into hydrogen or something to store it. But the problem is, if you put wind power into hydrogen at £120 a megawatt hour, that's what it costs to produce. It comes out at 300. Now, if you do that, your electricity bills are going to be permanently at the level they were during the energy crisis. I mean, permanently. Because, as Ed so rightly pointed out, the electricity gets sold at the price of the most expensive person on the market, which is gas now, but in future, it could be hydrogen. We are talking permanent energy crisis. And because people aren't willing to get into the nitty-gritty of these technical issues, Ed, I think you need to do that. You're leading us to disaster.
Ed, the final word to you. You are leading us to disaster.
Oh, total toddle. I mean, honestly, Andrew, you need to get on top of these statistics yourself. I mean, we're not bearing in mind what we do on fossil fuels. It's you have to go out and explore for it, drill it out of the ground, transport it, and then burn it. We're also not taking into account the fact that, in fact, you produce your hydrogen from the excess renewables that you've got, using it as a storage. And we're also talking about batteries, wave, and all the other ways that it can be stored as well.
All right, Ed, just quickly, finally, sorry, what happens if it isn't windy?
That's the whole point of having the storage, of course. If it's not windy and we've not got solar, we should have our storage. And at the moment, Patrick, absolutely right, we haven't got enough. So we've got to build.
So we haven't got enough wind. Well, I should have let in with that. Shouldn't I? Really, we've messed around for 19 minutes. The reality is we don't actually have enough wind for the wind farms anyway, do we? We could have saved ourselves a lot of time.
It's been from the whole country, not just from one area.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Fine. Look, both of you. Thank you very much.